Okay, so let's get started. The Musafim will see exactly how fast they're able to go. You speak about one, about the most of the Musafim, it's the same story here and there. We'll see interesting ideas or nuances. Okay? Mitzvah mem aleph. V'mitzvah ha'achas v'aboyim hi shetzivonu lahakriv Karbon b'chol yom Shabbos. A Karbon on every Shabbos. Noisaf al tomid shel kol yom. It's noisaf, it's musaf on the tomid shel shacha. Al tomid shel kol yom. V'zeu anikra shab. Zeu anikra musaf Shabbos. This Karbon, I guess the Chachmei HaMisera called it Musaf Shabbos, and that's the mitzvah. It's Moisef al Tomid, and that's what the pasuk says. Ola Shabbos b'Shabbato, Ola Satom v'Nisko. That it's a Olas Shabbos b'Shabbato. You have separate new oilos on Shabbos. And this special oilos on Shabbos, the nikrav al oilas atomid v'niska. Now, this is just a general disclaimer, okay? See, because someone will come and say, "V'yom Shabbos shnei kvasim meishon atmim shnei esrim yisrael minchulu Shabbos Shabbat olas otom v'niska." Okay, so someone will say, "Oh, where's the tzivui? A mitzvah is a tzivui." And the Ram doesn't quote. The Ram quotes, "V'yom Shabbos shnei kvasim meishon atmim." He quotes. So we don't know anything. So where's the mitzvah? So no, you could have said that it's not an amar. It's the passion the Torah. It's not worse than our first Adon, which we haven't spoken about yet. And the dinim in the Torah, whatever. But that's not what he does. He calls it an amar. So the simple answer to all this, and this basically is the answer to everything. All the Musafim, they will not find it tzivui, because at the beginning of the Parshas Musaf in Pinchas, or the beginning of the Parshas HaTmidim, Musafim in Pinchas, it says, "Sav es b'nei Yisrael v'yomart aleim es kol mini lachmi lishai reich nichoichi tikmeru lahakriv li b'moadoi." Every Karbon that's in these parshiyos, you should do a separate shmirah to do it the way it's supposed to, when it's supposed to be nikrav. So that is the tzivui on every single one. And here, it certainly goes on that, because there's no tzivui in the parsha. So the Torah says that this is tishmu l'akriv b'moadoi. We could talk about Richus later, Mirz Hashem, we get to the Kufchavs, but it's not worse than you see with Tazev, that it goes on 5 different things, and it's 5 different mitzvahs, whatever, or 4 or 5. Here also, it's Sav goes on this one, and all the Rambam expresses over here defines how the Torah talks about each individual Karbon. Now, next. So that is the Musaf of Shabbos. But this dram doesn't talk about it. This is the only musaf where there's no soya. But that's not of interest to us. And Mishnah Torah, he might make a reference to it that there's more. You makiv a few more, you extra kvasim that you won't makiv in the morning. Okay, beseder, but that's nothing to do with here. The mitzvah is musaf Shabbos and it's shnei kvasim and shalom Yisrael. That's it. Ukvais boy say the hakavosoi b'sheni miyoimo v'tomid. So good. That's protei mitzvah. He tells you where they are, and you can look at it. Next mitzvah, mitzvah membeis, mitzvah ashtayim v'arboim. He shetzivonu להקריב קרבן בכל ראש חודש. נוסף על תמיד של כל יום. So the musaf is a noisaf on the tamid of the day, of every day, of the tamid shel shachar. Who העומר יסעלה ובראשי חדשיכם וכו'. In Ibn Tibbon, in the Tirgum of Ibn Tibbon, he writes, "V'zehu musaf Rosh Chodesh." After he says, "Noisef al tomid shel yom kol yom, v'zehu musaf Rosh Chodesh." Now, just to point things out, it's not in any of the Kisvayad, and it's also not in Ibn Eov. So, you can put it in, you can put it out, but, it seems to a priori be some type of addition, which Ibn Tibbon did to almost to make it parallel to the mitzvah before. He says, Zehu Haniko Musaf Shabbos. So here he says, V'zehu musaf Rosh Chodesh. Now, the musaf Rosh Chodesh, they're porim, elim, kvasim, and seirim. And they're not makiv each other. The Ram says, in Ilson Musafim, Perich Ches Halacha Chof, Hatmidim Einu Makvin as Musafim, V'lo Musafim Makvin as Hatmidim, V'lo Musafim Makvin Zeh es Zeh. V'loi minyan ha'oilois kulon ma'akev. Ketzad, ha'ishaloi motzu, el shish kvasim makrivim shisha. Afil loi motzu el echod makrivim oisoi, Bein b'rosh chadoshim, bein b'mei hamoados v'shabbosos. Whatever you find, you makriv. So the mitzvah, the minyan that said in the Torah is only the mitzvah. Next. Now, Mem Gimel is going to have a little twist, a little nuance. Now, let's see. Next mitzvah. HaMitzvah Asholish v'Alboyim. He shetzivonu להקריב קרבן נוסף על התמיד כל 7 ימי הפסח. So each day of Pesach requires a korban noisaf above and beyond the tamid. V'zehu musaf chag haPesach, chag hamatzos. V'omer Yisala, 7 yomim, תקריבו Isha Lashem. So I hate to break this to you, but if you open up the Pasuk Chumash, you'll be very disappointed, because Shivas Yomim Takrivu Isel Hashem was said by Chagasukas, not by Pesach. It says in Pasuk, Shivas Yomim Takrivu Isel Hashem, Vayom Hashmini Mikol Kodesh Yelochem. So Yom Hashmini, even if I wouldn't have told you the secret, Yom Hashmini, Ikal Hashem, you're talking about Sukkot. You're not talking about Pesach, because in Chag HaMatzah there's no Yom Hashmini. The Pasuk by Musaf in Pashas Emor that was said by Pesach, by Chag HaMatzah, it says in Chav Gimel Lamed Vav in Emor, V'kraftem Ishal Hashem Shivas Yomim. Okay. Now, the first the first line of defense that someone will try to say, Sefer. The problem is, when you commit when the thing happens in multiple occasions, it becomes difficult to say it's a Torah Sefer. That's where I was brought up. I don't know. There are two other places where the Rambam quotes the Pasuk of Sukkot as the source of this mitzvah of Chag HaMatzos. In Mנחat, in Aseh Mem Gimel, להוסיף קרבן בחג הפסח, שנאמר, שבעת ימים תקריבו של השם. Same pasuk. Okay. So, maybe it was copied from the case. I'm not getting involved in how Mנחat was written, who, whatever. Okay, but say that. However, also in Rashit Gimel, where the Rambam is telling you that even though it says it's a mitzvah which is repeated one day after the next for 7 days, and he talks about Musaf Chag HaMatzos, and he quotes the pasuk Shivas Yomim Taqrivu Shel Hashem. So the Ram doesn't cherish in Kimmel. He does it over here in Mנחat. It is what it is, but anyone's going to start, whatever. Okay, say that. Next. The more interesting issue is not, whether he quoted the pasuk of Musaf Pesach or Musaf Sukkot, so let's say, okay, we assume that it's the Musaf of Pesach and it's the right one. But there's something else that's even more interesting going on over here. Because everywhere else, when it comes to the Musafim, the Ram quotes Parshas Pinchas. And here, he's quoting Parshas Emor. And he'll say, okay, So what's the problem? So quote Pashas Emor. In Pashas Emor, all it says is to be makriv a korban musaf. It doesn't delineate what the korbanos are, kvasim, palm, how the minyan. The minyan is really only in Pashas Pinchas, and that's what he's trying to tell you. So first of all, in Emor, it doesn't mention which korbanos it are. It just says v'kraftem ishel Hashem. Now, besides this, there's another problem. I'd like to focus on what Isha Lashem means. Okay. Now, we mentioned that in all Musafim, except for Musaf Shabbos, there's a called Mechatos. And the rest are Oilos. Oilos are Kul Hashem. The Chatos is Nechal. The Chatos is Nechal. Now, the word Isha in the Pasuk, v'kraftem Isha Lashem, or Takrivu Isha Lashem, according to Rashi, the pshat is it only is referring to the oilos, not the chatois. Isha means kula kolil Hashem. So it means that the pasuk is only talking about part of the musaf, and then it becomes even odder that the Rambam should have quote such a pasuk as the source of the mitzvah. And so someone will come and say, no, that's Rashi's opinion, Isha, but maybe the Rambam disagrees. But however, if you look at the Rambam in the Vuchim, in Chelek Gimel, Perek Mem Vav, he defines the word Isha as a oilos, as opposed to chatois. So this Ram sheet is also like that. So how can he quote v'kraftem Isha Hashem, which is only referring to a chelek of the korban musaf as kilu l'makor of the mitzvah? So, one must say that the source of the mitzvah of the mitzvahs of Musafim are certainly in Pashas Pinchas, because which is koilo, because the mitzvah is koilo chatos, which are in each parsha. And it also tells you how many of each korban you bring, how many, what the kvasim or whatever. And therefore, the Rambam is very makrid in the other Musafim, in every single place, to quote the psukim from Pashas Pinchas. Why over here he finds it necessary to quote Pashas Emor, I must say, is beyond me. I had ideas and I was doing but forget it. I think the best thing is to leave it so. So this is the nuance over here. He quotes the wrong pasuk, and even if you take the right pasuk in Parshas Emor, l'cheira, it's nothing to do with anything. Okay, because you're missing the kol mechatas. It is what it is. Next, mitzvah mem dalet. Okay, so here we're leaving Musafim for a second, and we're going to a korban called minchas ha'omer. This is mitzvah arboim v'mitzvah arba v'arboim hi minchas ha'omer. He should zivoru lahakriv minchas se'irin b'yoim shisha osa b'nisan, on the 16th day of Nisan. V'nakav imo keves ben shnosoi li'oilo. And also, not only is there minchas se'irim, there's a keves ben shnosoi li'oilo. V'omroi yis'aleh והבאתם את העומר ראשית קצירכם אל הכהן. ומנחה זו היא הנקראת מנחת ביקורים. The minchas bikurim goes on the minchas se'irim. ורומז עולהו באומר יסעלה ואם תקריב מנחת בikurim להשם אביב Kolui Boesh Geres Carmel. Okay, so here the Ram quotes the pasuk in Vayikra. Okay, the pasuk in Parshas Vayikra, and we'll see about it. We'll have to go through the psukim and see. Just read it for a second. So the pasuk that the minchas bikurim Lashem Oviv Kolui Boesh Geres Carmel Lashon Mechilta Kol Im V'Im Shabbatera. Again, you remember this Rambam in Mitzvah Chof. Then when any time the Torah says Im, it means it's a rishus, except for three. Chutz mishalosh shein choiva. Echa mehem omroi v'im takrib minchas bikurim. So it means this is a choiva. V'choiva ato ime choiva reina l'rishus tamaloi metakrib es minchas bikurecho choiva v'l'rishus. Okay. Also ich steht mecholta a separate limud that this carbon is a chayva. And it's not a rishus, so the im is l'chera a priori. We'll talk about this mitzvah also more, that the im should not be interpreted as if, because it certainly will be. And you should do. We have to say, what the term mean, what's going on. Hukva hisbaru mishpatei mitzvahs zeis. Kulam, all the dinim of this mitzvah, al shleimus beperik asiri mimenachos. Okay, perik mimenachos v'minchas ha'omer. Okay, now let's take each problem one at a time. First of all, the Ram calls it. Remember, he on the mitzvah boy, he minchas ha'omer. V'hi shetzivonu להקריב minchas se'erim. Okay, yeah. So, I'll ask you, he says that the tzivui in the Torah for makriv minchas se'erim. Where does the pasuk say se'erim? There's no such pasuk. So the Rambam in Pirush Mishnayis, in Menachos, Perek Yud Mishnah Daled, V'da, ki ha'omer hazeh min ha'se'erim. I'm skipping. You should know a yediyah. And he says, V'yesh l'dov hazeh remozim harbe memikah. There are many psukim that point in that direction. Michlolon shu koro minchas bikurim, v'koro shtei alechem bikurim. There are two types of bikurim. There's a shtei alechem, which is bikurim, and the minchas ha'omer is bikurim. So, and both of them are bikurim. Ubei bohem v'yomer kצירכם. In the shtei alechem, it says that the mincha of chitim. So, and the minchas ha'omer also is the bikurim. So it's not chit because chitim's later. So he says, hine zeraya shehabikurim shekodmu lehem b'chamishim yoim, which preceded the minchas shtei alechem 50 days, einon elo bikuri ksias orim. And this is how we know, a priori, how we know that this is minchas orim. I don't know. I guess the assumption is that menachos are only chitim and se'erim. Say that. But the Rambam ends off with one line. V'ika shesimchin olav hu shehadova kabbalah biyodenu. Well, that's the Kabbalah. Now, so very good. So Kabbalah, whatever it is, Dram says it's minchas se'erim. Now, Biyoim Shisha also b'Nisan. So this is like this. There is the see, first of all, it's Biyoim Shisha also b'Nisan, which is Mimochas HaShabbos. Ksater. And Kevis ben Shnoseli Oilo is telling you, he says this, you bring a minchas se'erim and a kevis le'oilo. And the pasuk which he quotes is not about the kevis le'oilo, but about the minchas bikurim, and to tell you that it's a chayva. Now, he only tells you that the minchas se'irim. He doesn't tell you, even though there are many chalokim to this mitzvah. There's avos minchas o'omer. There's the hagosh of the minchas o'omer. There's the tnuf of the minchas o'omer. And dakovis keves o'omer. Daber b'nei Yisrael. לפסוקים נאמר, ואמרת עליהם, כי סבו אל הארץ, אשר אני נויסים לכם, וקצרתם את קצירו, והבאתם את העומר, ראשית קצירכם אל הכהן. והניף את העומר, לפני הוויה, לרצונכם, ממחרת השבת, inifenu hakohen. The mitzvah tnufa is the day after Yontif. V'asisem biyom anivchem es ha'omer keves tomim ben shnosa le'oil Hashem. So not only do you tnufa on the omer, you do a keves le'oilo. U'minchos shnei esreinim seres bur v'shemen. Ish l'Hashem reich nichoich v'nisko yain v'yis ahin. This is Vayiko Chav Gimel from Yud to Yud Gimel. Now, so this is Parshas Emor. And before we read part of what's in Parshas Vayikra, the Minchas Omer is found in two places. It's found in Parshas Emor, in Parshas Moadis, which we just read, and in Parshas Vayikra. V'im takriv minchas bikurim, L'Hashem ovuv kolui, boesh geres karmel, תקריב es minchas bikurecho. ונשאתו oleho shemen, ושמתו oleho levoino, minchohi. והקטי הכהן את הזכרוסו מגרסו ומשמנו הכל לבינוסו איש אל השם. So now, and he says, okay, let's just get to what we have here. The Ram says that the mitzvah is, see, he starts out, see, let's just get it straight again. The Ram starts out, he says, you bring a mincha of minchas Omer, and the minchas Omer is se'irim, on the 16th day of Nisan, Mochas HaShabbos, and you bring with it a keves ben shnosel oilo. And he quotes a pasuk, Wama Yis'ala, V'avesim es Omer Reishis Kצירכם el HaKohen. This pasuk is in Parshas Emor, and this is the makor of the mitzvah. And he says, Uminchas, Uminchazo, he minchas bikurim. And then he says that the Mechilta says, even though it seems to say that this minchas bikurim which is mentioned in Vayikra, Parshas Vayikra, seems to be Rishus. No, it's Chayv. No steer. So the Rambam has decided that even though the Parsha of Minchas HaOmer is mentioned in Hain, in Parshas Vayikra, Hain in Parshas Emor, the Makor of the Mitzvah, the Rambam quotes from Parshas Emor. Now, there are two reasons. In Parshas Emor, it says when this happens. In Mochas HaShabbos, the 16th day of Nisan. And he wants to make that point in Parshas. In Parshas Vayikra, it just says in Minchas Bikurim. It doesn't say any. It doesn't say when you bring it. In Parshas Emor, it says that the mitzvah is not only Oima Tnufa, but this Kipsei Oila also. There's a Kevis Oila. In Parshas Vayikra, it only talks about Minchas HaOmer. So the Ram quotes the Parsha of Emor, which basically is explains what mitzvah includes. So that l'cheir it's mistaber to quote the Parshas Emor is a source of the mitzvah. Okay. Now, let's go on. We do learn dinim for the Minchas HaOmer from Parshas Vayikra, how to make it and everything. But the mitzvah in its to understand what it includes and when day it is in Emor. Now, interesting. Let's continue. V'oremes oleho b'omo yis'aleh v'im takev minchas bikurim la'Hashem oviv kolui bo'esh geres karmel u'minchas zui nikos minchas bikurim, and the remes of is in the Parsha of Vayikra. Now, this word remes, that is the way the Metargumim translated. However, in the Arabic source, in Judeo-Arabic, it says al-ashara, and we discussed this in Mitzvah Say Lamed Daled. Look back, listen again, whatever it is. That then we discussed many other cases. This is another case that the this word really means hera, and the translation remes is not exact, because the Rambam in Sherish Gimel goes out of his way and says the word remes means an asmachta that has no basis in psukim. And he says the Sherish Lishi, remes, going to Besakasva, and here he's saying this is the source. And the Rambam in the Pirush Mishnayis, in Adoma, the Pirush Mishnayis says that an asmachta is a source for halacha l'mishmisinik. It's not really a source. It's just has nothing to do with anything. And a Pirush Makubal has some real basis in the pasuk. So to say it's a remes, and at the same time to say it's Kabbalah, It means it's Torah. It's not really an asmachta. Excuse me. Next, the Ram does the same thing. And this, how do I know it's a Pirush Makubal? Because he quotes this same Mechilta, a mitzvah seichaf, to say that in Mizbeach Avodim, and there certainly there's a Kabbalah that it's not him, but it's going to happen. So what you have is the dinim of the Minchas HaOmer, of how it's made, is in Pashas Vayikra. What you makriv, and how, when you makriv, and how you makriv, that's an emor. And each parsha is mashlim the other one. Now, this, if you want, we can deal with this. Someone will come and ask, since there's a Pirush Makubal, that Minchas Bikum is a chayva, so what's pshat? What's pshat in the word im? In the pasuk, the Torah is trying to confuse you. So the simple answer to this is that the word im over here means kasher, when. And that's the Ram Pirush Mishnayis says in Menachos, in Perek Yud, Mishnah Daled, HaPirush HaMakubal, She'ein boi machlokes, Ki amru yis'ale v'im takriv minchas bikruim l'Hashem oviv kolui b'esh geres ka'omer. Hakavona b'kach l'minchas ha'omer. V'tevas im kan eino l'rishus elo hi lizman v'yeh pirusha v'kasher takriv minchas bikruim tia oisei mincha ovuv kolui b'esh. Okay, and you can look at Rashi and Ramban also in the Parsha. Okay, but that's the Rambam. Look, it's very clear. Next, mitzvah memhei. והמצווה חומש וארבעים היא שציוונו להקריב קורבן מוסף. גם כן ביום 50 מיום הקרובס העומר. That there should be a korban musaf 50 days after the Minchas Bikurim. HaKrobes HaOmer, Shuhu Shisha also Benisan, as we said already. V'zehu Musaf Atzeres, Anisko, B'Sefer B'Midbar. So there is a Korban Musaf on Atzeres or Shvuos, Vuhu Amor Yis'ale ובביום הביקורים והקריבכם מנחה קדוש של השם וכולי והקרבתם אוילו ריח ניחוח להשם. Now, slowly. Now, let's just show you something here. It says, let's start from the beginning. HaMitzvah chomesh ve'arboim, hi shetzivonu להקריב קרבן musaf. Okay? Now, in all the kisviyah, that's what it says. Gam came biyom chamishim, biyom hakovis oimer. Okay? So in Ibn Eov, it doesn't say musaf. It just says v'mitzvah chomesh ve'arboim hi shetzivonu להקריב קרבן גם כן ביום חמישים מיום הכובס העומר שהוא שישה עשר בניסן. So וזהו מוסף עצרס. So, the truth is, and I just don't want to go, but you'll think about this. The word gamkein doesn't make any sense over here. And if it had come, probably it's referring to the shtei lechem, the kibsi atzeres. But it's coming before, which is a little odd. So we don't know what those words mean. And case. So that's what we have here. I'm not sure exactly, you can make a case for imitivum, but that's not really, but the gamkein also is very difficult. The question is, how do we know that it's the 50th day of Akovis Oimer? In Parshas Pinchas, there's no date for Akrovish Shtei Alechem. The Rambam here says that the date is the Yom Acha Gmas V'Yisrael, and also in Mishnah Torah in Hilchos Tmil Musafim. He says, B'yom Chamishim Yaakov V'Soimer. Okay, so you have to understand how the Ram is interpreted b'shvor seichem. Is that what it means? Okay. Now, the Gam came. I discussed before. Let's a little bit more about Richus. Shiur Akrovos Musafei Shvuos is on the same day of the Yom HaKodesh Shtei Alechem, which is the 50th day of Kovis Oimer. And there it says, Usvartem lochem mimochras HaShabbos, miyom haviechem es Oimer Tnufo, Sheva Shabbos Timus Tiyeno. Ad mimochras HaShabbos HaShmius, Tisbu Chamishim Yoim, B'kat min Chadosh al Hashem. So that's the interpretation. Ubiyom abikurim b'kriv kamin chadosha is the Korban Musaf. וביום ביקורים, בהקריבכם מנחת חדשה, is the your makriv. You know, we know, you see, it's just the opposite because it goes on later then. We know that the shter lechem is on the 50th day. Okay. So you will be kuim is that day the Yemakrim min Chadash Hashem, which happens to be Biyom HaChamishim. We know that. So the Gam came, we know that this is on the 50th day because we know that the Shtelech was the 50th day and this is the same day because Biyom HaBikuim. So then, it should have been in the opposite order. He should have had Shtei Alechem and then the Musaf. There's another way of doing this. Rabbeinu Hillel, in his Pirush on the Sifri, in Parshas Pinchos, in Piska Kuf Memches, he learns from Bishavuosechem in the Pasuk Beyom Bikurim Taqriv min Chadash al Hashem Bishavuosechem, and you don't need Parshas Emor to tell you when this is. Mikol Kodesh Yelochem B'Shvuosechem Hu Liacha Sfiras Sheva Shavuos Shel Sfiras Omer. Shvuosechem, from after the Shavuos that you count Sheva Shabbos to Milostian. So this is after you count the 7 weeks. You mark this column. So then, according to Rabbeinu Hillel, it says it in the pasuk that it's the 50th day. B'Shvuosechem. Why the Rambam has to? Okay, and then B'Yom Chamishim Miyoim Akrovas Oimer Shu Shisha Aseh B'Nisan, which he mentioned already before. He say it again because he's counting. It's a little odd. So it's not necessary. Here now. Okay, next. One second. Yeah. Mitzvah Mem Vov. Mitzvah Ashesh ve'aboyim. Hi shetzivonu. Lohovi shtei lechem chometz lemikdosh. The Rambam is makdim over here the mitzvah of Musaf HaTzeres, that I mentioned before, to the mitzvah of shtei lechem. So one could have said that that's the Seder Kova. As the Rambam says in Tmin Musafim, B'Yom Chamishim Misiris Ha'Omer Hu Chag HaShavuos V'Hu HaTzeres וביום הזה מקריבן מוסף, כמו מוסף ראש חודש, ועוד מביאים יסר על המוסף, ביום הזה חדש וכולי. עם שתי ימי הלחם, פער, שני כלים וכולי וכולי. אוקיי. Okay. Just, we're not going to finish this. We just should read this mitzvah too carefully. Finish the mitzvah Hashem next time. Lahovi shtei alechem. That's chametz. What does he want with mikdash over here? Ima korbanos hamiyuchadim. And it's a shtei alechem with korbanos miyuchadim. Shehem yovo beglal alechem. Biyom atzeres hakotzu. What does he want with that kotzu? It's a very strange word. Laka korbanos. Kmo shebo bakotzu b'sefer vayiko vayochol hakohanim shtei alechem acha hanafosim. Why does he talk about achila over here? Im kivsei acha hanafosim, im kivsei hashlamim. V'hu Omo Yis'ale, V'mosh V'seichem Teril Lechem Tnufa Shtayim Shnei Eschel. V'ayislam, V'lizu, Shezeh HaKorban, Shavo B'gal Lechem, it's choluk, that's the important thing. It's a separate korban, and therefore it's a separate mitzvah, mitzvahs, and the mitzvah Hashem will pick this up next week.